In this video, I will show you how to put together this Halfling Hideaway house, which is a 3D SVG file from Simply Crafty SVGs. In this video, we're going to make this cute Halfling Hideaway house, which is like a Hobbit house. That's what I was inspired by J.R. Tolkien's Hobbit. So there's a lot of options in this file. If you do purchase this file, there's some extras in the extra stuff folder, and we'll go over a couple of those throughout the video. So there's a couple different ways you can make the house. So this is with the step. So here's another version with cobblestone walkway instead of the step. So there's a couple options in the file, like I said, and if you go below in the video notes, you'll be able to jump around in the video to different video chapters, as this is a very long video. So we're going to start with the door and the doorway. The pieces you want are these two pieces, which is we will attach this to once we get this piece together. And then this piece, so there's two pieces like this, but one is the panel, and it's decorative panel, but one has a tab. If you choose to make it the same color, you can. I mean, you could always make the front panel, but we want the one with the tab. And then this also, we're not going to use it right this moment. We're going to piece this together first. And then these pieces. So if you do just pull these out, you can arrange them like so. One thing you want to be careful of, these two pieces will go across like that once it's put together. This looks very similar to these pieces right here. These two pieces. You'll see it's longer. So you want these pieces, there'll be two pieces that have the same size like that. Those go on either side. They're part of the wood panels. And I did ink the edges a little bit on these. You can do that. I'm going to demonstrate it a little bit later, but just using inking on the edge. And then this will be the vellum piece that we'll put behind the window, the little window in the door, and the little trim. So let's go ahead and put this together. So it's better if you just arrange it like this first, and you can see it. It's just like in the file. You can see the curves. So these pieces, you can tell they go that way. So it's going to be best if you put them in order. And you'll see the little cutout lines on there, and that's just to help guide it. You don't really need to once you get the first one, but if one gets off a little bit, they come in handy. And just a special note, if you look in the extra stuff folder, if you don't want to do something like this and you don't want the cut lines, there is a version without the cut lines. So if you just want to do a pattern paper or something like that. So the way that's going to work, so take these pieces aside. Those will go on very last. I would take these, put them in order, like I said, and we're going to line them up. So I'm not going to talk through the whole thing, but the most important thing is getting the first piece in. So I'm going to use my Barely Art glue, and I am using American Craft textured cardstock. The colors I used are in the notes. So we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to add the first piece. And wet glue is great because you can, to move it around a little bit. So I want to get it lined up. So I'm just making sure it's nice and lined up on the edge. The first piece makes all the difference. So whatever side you start on, you want to continue. And for some reason, if something comes off is a little bit off on the bottom or top, you can go ahead and trim it off with scissors. And actually, even though I added glue to the back of this, so I'm just going to line it up. And those little cut lines are just kind of show me that I'm on the right track. And they should, like I said, you want to butt it right up. And I think it's easier to put the glue down than it is to put it on the actual, so you don't get glue. Don't drop a piece. So you can see I'm just lining up each one, making sure that they're lined up on top and bottom. So if you have these in orders like this, we're just going to continue all the way across. And then so you can watch, I'll do the rest of it, and then I'll come back just in a minute to talk about the window part. So now you can see that, and you're also going to see like little cut marks on this one panel. So make sure those are at the bottom. I did forget to tell you that, but I mean it's still rounded at the bottom. But that's going to guide where we're going to place this. So just make it easier so we can line it up easier. So just like that. And then this one will line up just right up at the top. This edge should line up with the curve of the top of the window. So we'll go ahead and put those on really quick. You see the inking really doesn't make a difference. It kind of helps you see the separation between the wood planks. So that's just to help that little cut line. Then we'll have this ready for when we put together the door inset, the inset door. So I'm just trying to line it up in the middle. If you don't put ink glue all the way to the edge, you'll have a little wiggle room. I'm going to flip it over to see. Make sure it's not crooked. It might be a little crooked, but it's kind of like a hobbit house, right? So who doesn't like, people that like fantasy, it's fun. So once we go ahead and put that down, we can go ahead and put this on the back like this. Let's go ahead and do that. And then on the front, we'll put this trim on. I'm just going to put glue mostly on the edges. This is a nice thing about having this fine tip applicator, which it comes with these kind of bottles. I'm using a bigger one. Usually I use a 2 ounce. So here's a 2 ounce. But it's I decided to use my 4 ounce. I have a couple of these, so I'm using this 4 ounce for now. So I can always put a little dot of glue in the middle if I wanted to, but be really careful, because once you set it, you don't want the glue getting on the vellum. So I'm better sideways when it comes to this, because I can see I'm trying to line up that bottom edge. And just kind of wiggle around just slightly to get it into place. And you see it really doesn't really touch it, so I guess you don't need that little dot of glue in the middle. So there's a little door. When we're all done, we'll have a little knob. We'll add a knob with a little enamel enamel dot, or you could use a drop too. So now you want to go ahead and put together the door. So we don't want the pieces you want are these dark ones. So the reason they're a different color is because it's going to create like a brown inlaid trim. So I don't know if you can wipe that off. Always have a little wet paper towel available, so I can get the excess off my fingers or off the projects. Keep everything clean. I'm going to put this in there. So with this, this is textured cardstock, and I want the textured cardstock to be on the inside of the door frame, like that. So the non-textured will be in the inside where you won't see it. So we want to go ahead and make sure that it's like that. So I'm going to kind of curl it a little bit. One other thing I want to note is there's 2 sets of tabs. One has a rounded edge. Let's see if you can see it. Let me get this off the background. One's got a rounded edge, and one's longer and has sharper edges, like that. This is the one we're going to use for this step, is the longer, sharper corner ones. So we want to go ahead and glue this in a circle. In order to do that, there's a little cut line right here. I'm going to use a pen to show you. Just lightly right there. You don't want to fold it. It's just for a guide so we can glue the other end. So we're just going to flip it around. I'm going to glue it on the outside. Can you see it? Let's see if I'm asking you questions, you're not here. Let's see if I can get it in the right angle. Right there. You see how that goes? We're going to glue it right to there. So let me just go ahead and do it. So we want it circular, so we don't want a tab. But you need to know how far to go, so that's that little cut line. So I'm purposely gluing the tab on the outside because that'll be the inside of the box. You don't want to go over the line, you want to go right up to it or a little bit to the right of it. Just don't go over it. And you can see it's how it is on the back, on the outside. Like that. Okay, once we have that done, we're going to go ahead and fold these in. So if you are using a score tool like Cricut, you may individually need to really push them. I cut, if it's a dashed line, which you can do the perforated line, they'll fold really easy. And you can find the individual files like that in there. But if you get the whole solid lines folder complete file, you're going to get just solid lines. But you can always get pieces if you feel like it'd be easier to do one with perforated lines like this. Anything with really small tabs, sometimes it's just easier than trying to get sharp folds, especially this way with like a Cricut score tool, because I don't think it scores very well. That's one of the reasons I really don't use Cricut, is because I do so much scoring and I like solid scores that I tend not to use Cricut anymore, and that's the primary reason. So now they're folded all in, and we want to get them folded pretty good. Get some sharp edges in there. Mine folds a little bit easier than, like I said, I have a little cut line. Once we have it all folded, we're just going to insert this. So I'm going to pay attention to where I glued the tab, which is right there. I'm going to make that the bottom because you won't be able to see it very well. What I'm going to glue is the non-textured side to the textured tabs. So I'm just going to go ahead and slide it in, and we're going to add glue to all these. So if you want to, you could put glue on around the edge, but I'm one that likes to put glue on the actual tabs. I just think it's more consistent, and it's easier for me, especially with the fine tip applicator. But it takes longer, admittedly. But when I do it the other way, it seems like I get more glue on the table than I do on the actual project. And it seems tabs don't glue very well. So I'm just going to I'm going to do half of them. And the tip here is that it really needs to be folded well. So again, I need to try not to get the glue on the inside like I did. And I forgot where the tab is, so I'm looking for that really quick. How could it disappear? There it is right there. Did such a good folding job. So I'm going to go ahead and slide it in. And it starts about right here. I'm just going to go around. And then I'll go ahead and do the rest of the tabs. So I'm going to flip it over, add glue to the rest of them, and then do the same. And you can also do this. So let me go ahead and make sure you get that little edge into the tab fold. And take the time to do it. And then I'm going to just flip these up and do the other half. So now I'm adding glue to the back where the tabs are. And this is going to be the inside. So this is where the tabs are. To cover the tabs, we're going to take this other piece. So this is chestnut color that I'm using right here, but this is caramel. This is American Craft texture cardstock. I'm just going to line that up, and that'll show in the inside. So we'll hide that, so if somebody's looking inside the box, they don't see all the tabs when they put their tea light or fairy lights, whatever it is. And then I'm just going to apply pressure down there. So you just want to make sure you get some good glue coverage on it. And this is a house I've been wanting to make for, years. I just didn't take the time because I knew that there would be some challenging pieces, but hopefully I break it down. This is not a beginner project, but I'm going to break it down to I think enough that somebody, if they were patient with themselves, they could do it. But I always do suggest you try some of our freebies first, freebie boxes and that kind of thing. So now we want to line this, we want to put this in. So it's going to be a little bit tight, but not really. So you can see right here that we're going to have to angle it around a little bit like that. But we're going to line that opening. So we want to put that in first. So we're doing this first because it's kind of hard to get it in once we get the front panel on. Just moving that pin. So for this, I'd get glue around the edge here. Try to stay away from that opening as much as you can because we're going to have to rotate it a little bit. So if we don't have much that's really close, then we won't get it on the vellum. So I'm going to go up to there so we have a little wiggle room. Because we can pretty much drop it in almost the way it needs to be, but we'll have to rotate it just a little bit to get it settled. So I'm just going to angle it in. Make sure none of these tabs get underneath. So I need to just rotate it a little bit. So don't put a lot of pressure until you get it in the right position. So there, it looks pretty straight all the way through. So I'm going to apply some pressure. And if you do get glue under, I just have a little dry glue coming off. And I can blow that off. But if you get some dried glue, you might want to get a little wet paper towel or stop and wash your hands. So you don't want any of that glue on there. Fortunately, these are just little bits. So now that we have this together, we'll go ahead and we're going to put these through. So before we do this, we want to train these backwards. So this one looks like I pulled this a little bit. So if it tears a little bit on you, it must have, when I pulled it off the mat, it tore a little bit. So just be gentle if you get something like that. So I'm going to fold it back. So these will be easier to fold. So we're going to line them in. We're going to put these through the hole here. Let's see if we can go this way. I don't think we can. It's too thick down there. I'd push these in a little bit. I like a lot of dimension, so when I do stuff like this, I tend to like sunken windows. If I don't have a sunken window or a window that juts out, I like to have at least one, usually. So I kind of pushed them in a little bit so it would, tabs would come up through the opening. And I just messed that up. So it just takes a little patience. So you want to push those in to get these through. I'm going to rotate it. So we kind of have to visualize this. So I'm going to put it straight across. Just kind of rotate it till it looks straight. Now you can always use ruler too. Let's see if I have a big ruler that I can use. Going across. So lining up like that. Maybe go a little bit left. So just get that situated. And then what we're going to do is, again, you can just add glue. I'm going to show you this method of just adding glue to the front. I'm going to have a front panel, so I don't really care too much about a little bit of glue leakage because we're going to have a front panel. But if you want to do it this way, you can flip them, do part of it or all of it. We'll just go all the way around. The biggest issue will be if your glue stays, if you put enough glue so it doesn't warp, and if it stays nice and wet before you flip it over. So this is the other way to do it. If you don't want to do individual tabs, I prefer individual tabs. But this is easier to fold back. So now what I'm going to do is go like this. That probably would have been easier. That's the way we should have done it. I just didn't do it the first time. I usually do it that way. So I'm applying pressure. The only thing I don't like about this is that I'm going to have glue on my table. When I don't, even though I know it's a workspace, I don't really like glue on my table. So you can see little bits of glue. So you don't want that getting anywhere. So if you do that, you want to make sure you wipe it up. So make sure you have a little wet paper towel. And I'll get it on my fingertips too. So I'm not too worried. Like I said, I have a front panel, so that will attach it. So we'll put this aside. Once you know these are down, put it aside to dry, and then we'll go on to the wood beam assembly. The next two things we'll do are the wood beams. So these are little beams that'll go around the edge of the house. And then this is the fireplace. So we're going to put these two together. I like to do some of the detail work before I do the bigger work. So we'll have 4 panels plus this. So we're going to go ahead and put the fireplace up. And we have these panels. And there'll be seven of these. These are not the easiest things to put together, but they're not easy, but they're simple at the same time, if that makes sense. So they have numbers on them, and I put it in pen. So 1, 2, let's see, it should be like this. Have them upside down. 3, 4. So that's the way we're going to put them on. It goes through 7. So I'm going to do 2 of these, and then the rest are done the same. But you just need to pay attention. I'll tell you when you need to pay attention. But I'm going to do 2 on camera, and then you want to do all the rest of them. So you need to pause the video at that point. If you do not want to do these because it seems difficult to you, in the extra stuff folder, there are some flat ones that you can put on later when we put on the front panel. So we're just putting them together right now so we can put them aside. We're not going to actually put them on the house yet. So just know that there's some flat pieces like, oh, I didn't have it ready, like this. So here's some of the front wood accent we're going to put on. So there's some flat pieces that are the size of each section if you don't want to do this. But I like this look because I wanted to mention, so we're going to go ahead and we'll do 1 and 2. So with 1, it's really small, but they're going to be done the same way. So you want to fold them And you want to score them really well if you are using the scoring tool or something like that. If you have a perforated line version, it'll fold really well. You do not have the ability to... I made these all perforations on the end so they would fold okay. So those will always be perforated. So we want to go ahead and just fold it over flat, and you'll see the tab part. Take the pin out. Just gonna add glue to these. I mean, these are not the biggest things, so this is one of those designs that's really not the best to resize down. So we're going to go ahead and just flatten that right onto that tab. And that one, the number that you see in the back, it's not going to show because that's going to be glued onto the house. So that's the way that I did that, rather than put it on a tab, because you need to know once it's made. So I like to do a couple of these like this, all of them like this first, just like this so they can dry, and then I do the ends. So I'm folding those after that, and they may not fold the best. These are not the... These took me a long time to test, so they're not perfect. I just get to the point I wanted the look, and this is the way I ended up doing it. So on that little teeny tab that has the angles, and you're just going to fold over the other edge. So I would recommend you do that for all 7 of them to start, and then we go to the next one. So this will take some time. So some have angles on the end, some don't have. So this number 1, the only one that doesn't have angles is number 4, but the rest do. So what I did is that we have where the number is. That's the back of it. So the way we want to do this, and I'm going to use a... can't remember what I was using for this. I'll just use my little tweezer. I'm going to push these in. Like that, those little tabs. Those are purely for structural, to hold it in. And then the part you want to fold down first is the one part with the number. Okay? So we're just going to add a little glue. Right there. So you may get a little glue on your fingers with this. Just getting excess off here. Fold it down and then fold the other part on top of it. Like that. So once we get it in place, we're going to hold it. Like that. So this is a time-consuming part. I'm trying to flatten it as much as I can, and then you can go ahead and do that. But you do want to take the time with these. In fact, you might want to do projects like this in advance before you actually put the house together. I just think it's easier. But I really, really wanted this look, so I was going to get it no matter what. So to me, the most messy part is this part. But you want to make sure there's still glue on it, so if you lose some of your glue because you touch it with your fingertip, flip back over. So the most important thing is you want to flip over the side with the number first, that big tab. Right there. So we'll do another one. I'm only going to do 2 on camera because they take a while. I was using like a toothpick earlier when I was doing it to push it back rather than something like this. It's not too sharp. So you could use something just small. It's just helped me to move it. And also really to try to flatten it. Because the biggest issue I had with this, I'll explain when I get to it, has to do with spacing once you put them on. So if you have too much bulkiness here, they won't fit right. So best is to get them as flat as possible. This is why we're not going to record. I'm not going to show you every single one. So again, the side with the number right here, that's the side you want to push in the sides. If you have nails, it's easier. That's why I said use a sharp tool, whatever sharp tool you have, or small tool. I'm just going to put two little dots of glue. Like, honestly, it's just for it to be the backing for this tab right here. If I can hold that into place while it's down, go ahead and add some glue. So that's the tab that was on the side with the number. I did that one first and then folded over the last one. And it's one of those things where you have to put pressure on it for a while for it to stay. Like I said, I honestly felt like at one point that I wanted to give this up, but when I did the final house, I really liked the look, so it was worth it for me to take the time. When you have vision for something, you just need to have it work. So we're almost done with this. So side tabs, the tab first with the number on it, you cannot put a couple little dots of glue. Fold this over. See if I can hold it with my fingertips. Would you imagine people that put miniature stuff all together? This is like, I'm not really good with my tweezers. So this is the reason why I included an alternate flat version of these. So if somebody got really frustrated, they still kind of get the look, but just not the dimension. So the most important thing is take the time to get those ends nice and snug as you can without indenting them or anything. It's going to help you in the long run to get it sized correctly. So I'll finish up the rest of them, then we'll go on to the chimney. So after I put these together, and just make sure that they're as flat as they can be. Like I said, it takes time. Some are better than others, but I went through and you can see they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm just going to the other side, taking a little black soot, distress oxide, and getting it on the edges here. Kind of distressing the look. So that's where a little inking will do. That's optional. You don't really need that, but I think just a little highlight. You could even do a lighter color if you had a dark brown like this, chestnut. So the other thing is, we're going to go ahead and put together the fireplace, but I already had inked these. So the way that I did that, same thing, is just kind of get it in there and blend it in the edges. So it's up to you how much you want to do. I just like to do the edges. It gives it a little bit of a touch. And that's how I did that. So let's go ahead and assemble the fireplace, just to show you how that's done. And I'll probably show you another time. So now we have the fireplace. So we want to do those early because I just want to let them sit and dry. The same thing with this one. So it's nice and dry by the time we put it together. But you want to fold all the tabs down like this. So the first thing we're going to do is just fold over one side here. And I'm using a pin. A lot of people don't see me use a pin, but just because with the quantity of glue in this bottle, for some reason it keeps on drying up inside, so it's just easier to have a pin. They do come with the pin, but I'm using a different one. So I'm just going to fold that over. You can move that out of your way like that. And it's okay, there's a little glue. I normally am super careful, but there's a little glue on the outside, but we're going to cover it with panels. And make sure this is folded well, including the tab. We're just going to glue it around here. So starting at this one right here, add a little glue to, let's do on the first two panels. Or not panels, I'm sorry, tabs. I'm just going to wrap it around. Line that edge up to the fold. And then just fold around here. It should just fall into place. But you can see it, I'm just scooching it to line it up. So it's easier to see when you're up close to it than it is on the camera, in my opinion. So the same thing, you can see that's where the fold is. We're just going to go like that. And then we're going to tuck that in and fold that on the inside. So I just tucked it in to get ready for that. Add glue on this. I'm going to add a little bit of glue on this. You could glue it on the outside too. Actually, let's just do that. Because we have panels. It'll just make life easier. Except I got glue on my fingertips now, so that's never fun. And then we're lining it up at the top here too, so you can see it lines up properly. So I'm just making sure that the inside part is lined up to that fold. So for these, we could have done it while it was flat, but we want to train them backwards. Because eventually, just do it one time, because we're going to, when we put it onto the roof, we'll slide these through and then glue them like this on the underside of the roof. So now we need to find the right panels. Oops, obviously that's the big one. Oh, and if you're wondering how I got this texture, that's an embossing folder. The one I used is, I just used a manual die cutting machine and ran them through after I cut them. And I actually used this one, Sizzix Basket Weave. I don't even know if they sell it anymore, but even though it's basket weave, I like the look for what I wanted for this particular fireplace. Just going to line it up so that it'll be all ready to put on when we get to that point. Because next we actually are going to work on the roof. You see how that's not quite right? Let's go to the other side. Flip it up. There you go. It's a little bit larger on the top. So just test it, dry fit it before you put it on. It is easier, I think, to put the glue on the object and then put the panel on top, because otherwise if you drop the panel, if you put it on the panel and you drop it, then it's going to get everywhere, which I do all the time. So we'll finish these two panels and we'll move on to the roof. So now you can see here's the finished roof. And we're going to put that aside. Now we have all these pieces. So I have a little wet paper towel here that I'm putting to the side. So I have it if I need it. But we have these numbered. So these are the roof pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You want to put them in order. 5, 6, 7. So you can pin them in like that. Those are just on the tabs. We want to put them together in that order. So for all of them, you want to fold them where there's score lines. So let's just take 1 and 2 to start with. So I made it this shape to make part of it simpler to put together for a low poly. So let's go ahead and take the pin out of the glue. And I've been starting at the bottom. I felt like that was working better for this particular design, but you could start at the top. But I want to go ahead and anchor just one tab. You can do multiples once you get used to it, put glue on multiples, but just for those that are beginning, if you want to line this up. So I'm lining this section up. There we go. Just getting it lined up, and once I have it lined up, I'm going to apply pressure. I just want that edge to line up with that fold there. So I'm just running my finger over it to make sure that it's lined up best it can. So make sure these are good and scored first, folded. Then we can go ahead and flip in. And go ahead and add glue to the other 2 tabs. So this is the same all the way across. So we're just making the shape of the roof. So I'm just going underneath, lining this edge up. So if you've never done this before, like I said, try a simpler project. We have some free boxes that are like this, 3 SVG files. It's Simply Crafty SVGs. If you want to give it a try. If you do download some freebies, remember you can download more than one at a time. So some people go and do like just one at a time. Just go to our freebie section and you can go ahead and download as many as you want of the freebies. There's over 100 as of today. I forget how many exactly. I've been a little slowing down on my freebies. So I'm just going to go ahead and line this first one up. So every one, even though the shapes are slightly different, you want to line up where the folds are down here, and then line up each edge. And you can see it just lines up like that. So it does help to pre-fold all those. I didn't do it so this time, but if you want to get them all pre-folded, so they're just, all you're doing is gluing and manipulating it to line things up. So just line, and this is easier because it's smaller, so I can reach in easier. The bigger pieces are harder because my hand can't reach in as much. So you kind of have to just take your time and be gentle. You can get a little glue on the top, unless you feel like you want to keep this just like it is. But my design is very specific. It'll have shingles in the front and moss in the back, or you can make all moss too, but that's up to you. So let me continue putting these on, and then you can watch me. I'm just not going to talk through it. It's just going to be sped up a little bit, and then we'll go on to the next step. So next we're going to get this piece. So here's the completed roof. It seems really big, but we have a lot of details on this that got really small. like these beams. So it just ended up being a little bit wider to get the look I wanted to, and not to make it too hard to make. So the way we're going to do this, we have the widest part here. The one with the numbers is the front. So now we want to take this piece and we're going to just kind of fold these down in, I should say. You take this piece, it's going to glue like this, upside down. So on the inside with these tabs on the outside. So let me demonstrate. Let's go ahead and glue the first tab. I'm going to add glue the first tab. I know it's a little bit dark, so make sure that you can see it right there. So we're going to start with this edge right here. Going to go ahead and line this up. Line the edge up right into that tab fold. And make sure it's lined up at the bottom and that it's in the appropriate section. So I'm going to just apply some pressure here. I'm going to flip it over in a moment to show you. Get that so I don't lose my pin here. So it's going to glue to the front like that. And so we're not worried about it because we're going to have a panel on the front. So what we're going to do is I'm going to add glue to 3 more tabs. We could do all at once, but I think it's easier just to do them a little bit at a time. So let me just flip this over to get it so you can see it better. And you don't want to flip it like that until it's connected. This is why I like this particular cardstock, because it's pretty sturdy. So I'm going to do 3, then we'll do the remaining 3 after this. I'm going to get some good coverage up to the fold, down to the fold. We're just going to carefully start with the tab that we just attached. So let's go ahead and kind of push them in a little bit. See if I can get it angled so you can see it. So we started here, we're going to go to the next one. We're pushing in the edge, getting those tabs underneath. You can see you can't really see it, but let's see if I can get it angled here. So we're just getting the edge against each of them, and I'm going in order. So we're at the very first tab, second, now I'm at the top, and then we have the last 3. But before we put a lot of pressure in, we want to make sure it's matching up well. There we go. So we'll put glue on the last 3 here. And what this is doing, it just makes it easier to put this panel on. I'm just going to lift that up. So it's not my normal. I start at the middle. The middle's attached. I'm going to go to the next one. Push it in from the side, and I'm pushing the tabs underneath. Like that. You want to do it in order, so I started with the middle, and then the next one over, and then the last one. Making sure that I'm pushing this panel in as I'm pushing the sides in. So the edge of this panel lines up with the inside tab. So this one's off just a little bit. Oops. So that'll happen when you're off a little bit. So you shouldn't be able to notice it that much, but I just wanted to show you what happened. So we have that now. So we wanted this because we wanted it sturdy for the next step. So a lot of this we're keeping open while we're doing the work, because it's just easier because we can get underneath there with our hands. So the next one is this. So this is, I'm just going to put this back so you can see this. These are the edges to the roof. So I tried many places to do this. I just wanted something to jut out, but I didn't want whole pieces of paper that we had to put on there. So I came to this. I was having some issues lining it up, so this is what I came to. So one thing you want to make sure is that the cuts that you see right here, up here, there's some gaps up here. You want those to be up and the solid part in the bottom. Then we're going to go ahead and add glue to this tab here. So again, it needs to be completely solid on the bottom like that. We're going to line this up. So you don't want to go over. I can do it flat, but just go up to it, not over it. So it gives us just a little bit more space just in case we need it. Because what happens is when you put together the roof, if you don't do it really close together, things like this are not going to fit over it. So we try to do the best we can. So now this is going to sit on the edge. So I'm going to do it from this. I'll lift it up in a minute, but we're going to start in the middle. And these little cuts right here are so you can see, so it can help us line it up here from the top and the bottom. Otherwise, you won't be able to see how much is jutting out. So I want to center this one, and you can see it's going to go down like that and go down like that. So let's put it on its back so you can see it. So we're going to start with that middle piece right here. I'm going to add glue on the, not the flat part. So the flat part's up here. The part with the cuts in between is going to help us put it on the panels. I'm putting glue below that little rectangle cut. So I'm going to line this up. I'm going to angle it so you can see it in just a minute. What I'm doing is lining that opening up right up to the edge of, see there? If I pull it to the right a little bit, you'll see it. We don't want to see it. We just want to get this jutting out around the edge. So if we get that set in place, just applying pressure, I'll show you what it looks like on the top. If you get this right, things will go well. So this little cut here seems like it's going to be showing, but we have shingles that'll go over the edge to cover them like that. Okay, so they will not show. So let's just take the other side now. So you can see that there's below the cut, I'm adding glue. You see that opening? We don't want it to be visible. So we're just making sure that that edge of that opening lines up with the section. And then I'm applying pressure on the inside. And there's scores here too, so just make sure you score it. Just at these little parts. There's cuts obviously too. So you want to hold that long enough. And while we're doing this, it gives it like a roof edge. And when we put the beams in, it gives us that dimension. So next one, I'm going to do this. And you can see, if I had it that way, you'd be able to see the hole. Just going to scooch it back just a little bit. And that's how it's helping us line up. So inside, I'm just applying pressure to this section. So if you do like this project, you know, we have other houses and other 3D files. So you can check out our website. It's simplycraftysvgs.com. So we have lots of things you can you can make with your Cricut and your scan and cut and silhouette. So here we go, one more. So if it's not perfect, it's okay too. But I do want it to kind of line up at the bottom. And if you do like this video, I ask if you could give me a little thumbs up or like on the video and or subscribe to our channel if you haven't already done so. And if you hit that little notification bell to the right, you'll be notified when we have new projects, new videos. So you can see that's how it goes like that. And if something lifts like this, we could either just put a little glue down there. Again, I'm going to either, you have the options of covering everything with moss or partial, and I like the partial. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. So I'll go ahead and finish that up. Again, just making sure as you go around, you're putting glue below that little cut line, and then making sure you just kind of scooch it in a little bit so you can't see through it. So as you can see, it's coming together, and you can see that little edge. So we're getting there. One thing I say next, and the reason why I'm doing it in specific order, many reasons. So the next thing we're going to do is shingles. And the reason we're doing that is for some reason we want to make sure we don't get anything on here. But if you get glue elsewhere, it won't really show unless you get it on the edge here. So right now I didn't ink this or anything. I should have probably inked that. But I'm going to show you how I did the shingles. So we're going to do the shingles in a moment. So let me show you. Let me just push that back. So we have these shingles. So there's 12 of them. If you wanted to do the whole roof, you could, but I find it actually more frustrating than doing the moss. But if you wanted to, it's just because of the shape of the roof and the way I want it to look. So, but of course, do whatever you want with it. If we have them inked already, and you can see I'm just kind of, there's like a slightly different color on the edge. So when we line them up, the look will offset them. Like that. So you have a nice kind of a, like almost dirty but worn looking. So I'm going to go ahead and ink this. I didn't ink one, so to show you how I did it. Let's go ahead and do that. I want to make sure my glue doesn't dry while we're doing this. I'm starting to. So I'm going to take some Distress Oxide. I'm going to take this, well, it could be a makeup brush, just like a makeup brush, but it's a crafting brush. And you can see there's some ink already on it. I'm going to really push this in, get a lot of ink on it. Let's just go this way so I don't get it all over my table. So it's really to your taste, but this is how I inked it. I like these because there's like little bristles, but I usually go from outward in. And I do like this tool, and I like the finger tool that I showed you earlier, which are these, which are like the eye crafter finger brushes. So when you're doing big spaces, it's like that. So that's one, that's how I did that. So let's go ahead and add the shingles. So the way that we're going to do the shingles, let's go ahead and fold these in a little bit. We don't want to put the bottom piece in for good reason, because we need to be able to reach in. So once you get the first one, we're going to go 4 layers deep. So we're going to go 2, 3. We're just going to do our best to get as close as possible, about that. Then 4. So we're going to go like that. All the way to this opening, basically. But that's okay, we're going to overlap it with moss when we're done. So if there's any gaps or anything, we can do that. So the way that I put the second piece on, I want to alternate it. So I have a big one. So I'm going to put a big one in between here. I'm kind of lining it up right below So this edge is going to be right below those little cut lines right there. So you don't see the cut lines. You see how I go like that? But I'm going to alternate them. So here's a tall one. So I'm going to put a tall one here. And I can start a little bit higher there. So you may need a little bit more than 12. Like I said, there's 12 in the file. But if you want to add more, you can cut more out. So let's get this set in place here. You could do it all at once like this. But you might want to just do it in small bits. It does take a bit to hold it in place. Or you could use something like score tape. So I'm trying to center that so I can eliminate how much I'm going to use. And also you can see the cut line is right to the edge of the previous one underneath it. So that helps too. So take the time to put these on. Seems the center's better to start with. Easier to get it down. In this case, my glue may be drying already. So I'm not going to have you painfully watch every moment of this. I'm going to forward through it so you can see my progress. Again, I may need to cut just one more to get it done. So when I get to these last, I'm using score tape now, which is faster. You want to make sure you're using the right double sticky tape. But I'm getting close. I want to get as close to the edge of that fireplace as possible. And you'll notice that I kind of started at a different place. So I only have 12 and I probably need 13 if you want to go all the way down. But I'm going to put moss, kind of overlap it. So where this is, it's just going to kind of come like this. So I'm not worried about it. So I stuck to 12, but if you want more, you could put more. But you can see why we're not doing the whole thing. So some people might like, with glue is much slower to put it on, but with score tape, or really, or red line tape would be another tape that you'd want to use. That will make it a little bit faster to put it on. You still have to get around those corners, but it is a little bit faster. So I'm just showing you this last section here. So I did just go up a little bit intentionally because I know I have a short section here. So I wanted it to go as much. And if with the score tape, I could put a little piece of tape there. I'm just going to add a little glue at the end to hold it down. Just going to slightly overlap it. Oops. But it gives it a more organic feel anyways. Things are not square on this roof. Here I'm going to show you how to put in on the alternate flat roof pieces if you don't want to put on the moss and the shingles. So what I would say is you want to put those in order. Make sure they're in order before you start from left to right. And then I would start with the first one. So I don't have the front on it. This is just for illustration purposes, but I do have the edge. So we're going to go ahead and we want to start with the back. So the straight edge on the back. Make sure you have the right one. And the way you'll know is it's straight on the left side and it has a little bend on the right. And you'll be able to make sure that you don't have the wrong piece. So you want to make sure of that first. And that is for the fireplace. It's cut, but I only cut it just in case you have to. If you need to add it after you put the chimney on, then you'd cut it. But that's the reason why I cut it. So let's start with the first piece. And I would start with the left. You can also start with the middle. But we want to put it from back to front. And this is after you have the edge on, just like this is just instead of doing the shingles. So we're just going to curl the piece, and you can do that with all the pieces. We're going to add glue to the side that's the straight edge. We're going to line it up on the back edge. So you can see the very left section of the roof. We're lining it up, making sure it's in place there. And then we go ahead and we're going to go ahead and add glue to the other side. So let's go ahead and add glue to the other edge there. And then we can kind of just hold it down and glue the other side. So kind of flatten it from top to bottom and then glue it on the other edge. And I have to get the glue off my fingertip. Fortunately, I can get it off in the inside. So now that edge, you can see it lines up. And you don't have to put glue on the full middle part. And the next one, we're going to do the same thing. Make sure you have the right one again. You'll notice with the second one, the edge will match up on the right, and if it doesn't, then you know you have the other side. So just make sure. I'm going to show you the other side. How easy you can get confused. So that's why I said dry fit them first before you put them on. And then we'll do the same thing. So you can go, I would suggest going from back to front, but you can go from front to back once you get that first one lined up. And if you're going to go from front to back, you want to make sure it lines up right there. So we'll just finish this up, and then I'm not going to do the whole roof. I just wanted to show you how these pieces work if you choose to do that, as it is a good alternative for those that want to simplify the file and or maybe make it a bit smaller. So I just went the other way this time, lining it up in the front and then just adding glue to the back to attach it. And then as far as the next piece goes with the hole for the fireplace, you would probably want to add the fireplace after you put this roof piece on. So you might have to cut it if you did already add not the roof piece, the fireplace. So if you had the fireplace already, then you might want to cut that file, but as far as the way it is right now, you could just put it on and then put the fireplace on later. So you might be wondering, we don't want to do the moss yet. The reason is the moss gets everywhere. So we're going to hold off until we get a few other things done. But it was very beneficial to do this early on because you can reach in easy, all that fun stuff. So it just makes it easier having done it in different steps. So we're going to work on we're going to put the chimney on. Then we're going to work on the front house panel. So when you put the roof on, you see this little section right here, right there? You see this funny shaped tab? It's going to go that way. So when you look at it, it's going to come up like that and to the right a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and flip those tabs in. So again, that little funky shaped tab that's not straight goes on the side that's not straight. But we're going to put the other side on first. The reason is it'll get it anchored in place. So that's the way it's going to go. Like that. So I'm going to flip it over. Oops. Just pulled it out a little bit. So I'm going to glue this tab, the outside tab first. So once we get this roof on, we just have to worry, the fireplace on, we have to worry about not squishing it, or damaging it. So there it is. You can see it. I'm going to just fold it backwards. Like that. So I'm just applying pressure on the other side. So if we had moss, we'd get moss everywhere. So we're just trying to do it in steps that are more doable. I'm going to add glue to that side tab there. So I'm right across from it. I'm going to glue that one down. So I'm just pushing up and pushing down at the same time. And it's open, so if we put a really bright light in there, maybe it'll shine through. If we put a little tuft of, we put a little smoke if you wanted to, a little tuft of cotton balls. I'm going to go ahead and add glue to the outsides of the 2 remaining tabs and fold them back. So this one right here, I'm doing right now, and then this one. So I'll flip it around, make sure it looks secure, so we don't want it coming apart. So these are the next pieces we need. We have these wood pieces. We have the vellum, the window trim, and these wood pieces. So these have them on opposites right now. I have them upside down. I had them right. They're going to go like this. So there's some cut lines in here to help you line them up, and I'll note them. So first, we can't put these on first, but I'm just going to let you know that's it. So for this, let's go ahead and put the vellum on the back. So I'm going to go ahead and glue the vellum on the back. So if you're wondering, you can see the cut lines on the back. I did eliminate, I just have angled ones, but if you can see, well, I'll just do it. So on the back, you're not going to be able to see. But on the front, when you're looking carefully, of course I can't put it there for you in pen because it might show. So these will be the cut lines, and that's just so we can line up the wood pieces and the porch overhang. But so at least I could show you on that side. So I'm going to add glue around here to glue on the vellum pieces. Just be careful not to get the glue in the middle. And if you're wondering what kind of vellum I used, I had some printable vellum I used. I'll make a note to tell you the kind I use. And I go ahead and I just went in Photoshop, and you could use really any, like GIMP or any kind of photo editing. And I added a tint of yellow, like a really light yellow, because I wanted it to go with this coloring. And I didn't want white, so it's a real light tint. So that's what I did. So I'm just writing a note here. Vellum, printable. And then we can go ahead and put these on. So you want to put them on first before you put the wood pieces. So it doesn't matter, so just make sure that the texture's up. So they go different directions. I don't care which one's right and left. It's up to you what you like. So I'm just going to go around the edges, just making sure that the texture side's up. And you could add a little glue in the middle, but it's really not like that necessary. So I'm going to line it up with that opening. Just kind of scooch it into place. I'm just being really careful about where I place that glue so that glue doesn't get on the vellum where you can see it. And the vellum, you could put clear, you could use acetate if you wanted clear windows, but I like the vellum because when you put a light inside, it really glows well. So that's the reason I do that. So no matter which one you put on the right or left, they will line up properly. The only difference is the windows curve a little bit different. So before we add the wood pieces, let's go ahead and just do a little layering. So the piece you want, I had inked these just a little bit, so you can see. It lines up here. So up here, it's not making sense. I'm gonna add a little glue right there, just light glue. I'm gonna do the tip up there so I don't get glue where I don't need it. We're gonna line it up. And all this is doing is giving it this line, so it's separating it, giving it a little bit more dimension. That's all that piece is for, and that's why I inked it a little bit. So when you look at it, it looks like, you know, the pieces of wood. So the same thing on this side. Just going to add glue to the back of this. So this top edge, down here, you line it up at the bottom. That top edge will go all the way to the other side there. Just making sure a little bit of glue coming through. So now we can go ahead and place these. So here's where the cut lines come in. So there's a couple cut lines right here. So see on the back? There's one for the top right there. So that's those you'll see on the front. You just have to look carefully. That line up the top of this to that, and then you'll have little angle marks down here to line this up right here. Let's see, double check, make sure I'm saying that right. So I'm going to line it up here. And when you line it up here, there's some cut lines up here too, so you want to get this little beam going like that. So there's some cut lines right there. So anyways, there's a couple I call them cheater cuts to help, not cheaters, kind of help cuts to help you place it. So because of this, you want to place it as best you can the first try because we don't want glue all over the panel. So I'm just going to put glue in the middle so we have a little wiggle room. And this inside edge will line up over here. But I'm going to go over here. I'm going to start trying to line it up with the circle. And as I do it, before I drop it down, I'm lining it up with the top one right here. And then this lines up with the top edge of that edge on the window panel. Like that. Doesn't need to be exactly perfect. You just do the best you can to get it lined up. There's this thing called ink where you can ink the edges and all that fun stuff. And that hides. There's no mistakes. It just helps with things like if you're not completely lined up correctly. Oops. So the circle helps, but the problem is that you need to know where all these other things jet. So the things I focus in on the inside of this circle, and then I can look at the cut lines up here. There's some cut lines right there. And how this top lines up to the bottom edge of that right there, that trim. You don't want to see down here, that's butterscotch, the trim. And it's okay there's a gap because there'll be another panel. So when I say hiding it with ink, you could ink in here in the edge. I don't have anything underneath it. I like to do it on my thing, but you could ink in here if you wanted to. If you had brown, whatever color panel you had, if you had an ink that was similar to it, sorry about that, you can always ink in here. And that's just to get that white edge in there covered, because we'll have another panel on it. So that's getting close to the front. So now we want to take this and we're going to put it on the front panel that we already put on the house. So we're going to go ahead and take this, oops, and line it up. So it should line up. The biggest thing when we line it up is that we want to make sure that it lines up at the windows. So you can't see, if I'm off a little bit, you can see right there. That's off. We don't want to do that. So what we're going to do is add glue to this. So I'm going to go around the edges. Oh, I did forget to note one thing. I'll note that in just 1 minute here. Oops. Okay. On this one, I said that there's an optional panel. So if you have if you didn't want to do these, there's in the extra stuff flat ones that you can put on here and put them up here. So we're going to do these next. But it would be easier to put them on while they're down flat if you're going to use those. So just a note for those that might decide to use the flat pieces rather than the ones that were a little bit hard to put together. So I'm getting over these, but so the nice thing is I'm not getting too close to the windows because we don't want to get glue on the vellum. But once we get it set, we can flip it over and apply pressure carefully, but you got to be careful because now we've got this lip. So I guess you really can't apply pressure like that too easily because of the lip. I didn't have trouble doing it the first couple times I did it. Okay, looks like we have enough coverage, hopefully. Just trying to get it really well there without getting too close. So now, I'm going to put it like that. Oops. I'm trying to get it set in place there. I have wiggle room because I didn't put glue too close to the openings. So I'm just popping it down, making sure that the window sections line up. So I'm kind of looking inside too, see if they're lined up. It looks good. Now I can apply pressure. So you can't really do it flat because of this edge. Forgot about that. So I've made this several ways without the edge. All the boring parts of, you want to see this part. You don't want to see all the in progress stuff. Sometimes it can get quite frustrating. So once we get this set in place, we can go ahead and start and add the little beams that we created. Starting to look like a house now, huh? So we get these pieces, and this I would not use hot glue again because of the bulkiness of it, but you want to get them in order. So I'm going to put them down here so you can see them. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's so important that it's in order. If you go out of order, things are not going to go right for you. But what I'm going to do to start with is we're going to start with the middle one. So we have, let me put it left to right because it's kind of like how we think, a lot of us. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We want to start with the middle one. I found that works the best, else it doesn't fit as well. So the most important thing is this very first one. So we want it to fit underneath there. So we're going to put the number down. So we have, there's 4. I'm going to glue that portion to the front. So you can see if I go back and forth, I mean, these make them bigger, so they're not exact size. So it's really important that we get this first one centered. It's going to help us place all the rest. So I added glue to the portion that had the number 4. Just placed it down. And I'm trying to get it exactly in the middle of those 2 spaces. I should have added glue to the top too, but that's okay. This one we won't do it. So the top edge. And the reason I'm not doing it, because I already set it. Kind of looking under to see, you want it centered. It's not going to be from edge to edge. There's going to be a slight gap on either side. And I'm pushing it up at the same time. So I am taking time with this one. So now I have 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the thing. So we're kind of going backwards, but you still need to have the number. So I'm going to get number 3 now. So I'm going from 4, 3, 2, 1. They have to be in order, but if you go this way, things are going to get shifted. Okay. And this may even be a little bit shifted too. So when you place it, again, I'm going to put glue on the number. You want the long side to be up like that. So what we're going to do before I do it, and this is the reason why I had you push these in as far as possible, these create bulkiness. So what we're going to do is be careful with this too. That's why I'm keeping it sideways. Pushing these in so it kind of creates a flatness for us. I'm going to add glue a little bit to the edge there, the back, and then right there. Okay? So I'm going to add glue there. Remember, the long edge is the one that goes against the edge. I'm just going to add glue right there. So I'm going to place it. Oops, I did the wrong way. Long edge. Long edge. I'm placing it. And what I'm going to do, I'm pushing it towards here, towards the one I just set. Pushing it that way with pressure, as well as holding it in place. Pushing it against this. So there's a lot going on right now, and then I can reach in and apply pressure there. So now the long one, which is 2, will go like this. The 2 is down. Long way. I'll show you number, and then the same thing. The 1 is down, and then you want the long side. They'll go like this. So if you can see, potentially if you don't push, it'll overlap a little bit. But if it does, it's not a huge issue. Sometimes it's going to fit perfect, sometimes not, depending on how flush you got it up here. So found that out. I've resized them plenty of times trying to get more room. There's plenty of room. It's just a matter of how you assemble them. So I'm going to add glue there. Just put a line here. So it glues against the top. So my focus is going to be putting a long end, putting the number side down, holding it carefully. I'm going to try to push it towards the other one. without squishing everything. So I'm pushing it. I'm really not doing it that hard. I'm just, and then I'm pushing down at the same time and then gluing it on the top. So there's a lot going on here. I sense that people could get frustrated with this, so that's why I included a flat version of it. But I do like the dimension of it. So the last one, same thing, it's just more of the same. Put a line of glue all the way down. Add glue to the number side. And you see I kind of stay away too close to the edges because you don't want to get too close to the edges. Then the long side, like that, goes against that. So I'm just going to push up. This one I push up the most. And you can see it's pretty almost lined up okay. I think I had to do like 4 different versions of this before I even got close. But it could be a little bit further down. But it's like wood beams. That's why I call them wood beams. So I'll finish the other ones. So the biggest thing is to do now 5, 6, 7. And remember, when we do them, and I'll just record it without talking, you're going to do the long edge along this. Excuse me. So let me go ahead and finish that. So you can see it's done, and we have them it's pretty close to the edge here. If for some reason it hung for you, you could always try to use a like an X-Acto knife, or this is one of the Cricut craft knives, to carefully cut it on a cutting board. But I believe if you follow the steps, it'll go well, as it's shown. So now we're going to go ahead and put together the porch, and then we'll attach it. So I have a little glue there. Let's get that off. So this, we're going to go ahead and just fold it like so. This will be the back. This will be the front. So once you fold all the tabs, we can go ahead and let's add glue to this front one. So it's going to have a little porch overhang. You're going to line this edge up like so. So to get it nice and tight up here. So I'm going to glue this tab on the inside. Just going to fold that down and line that up like that. And then we'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and glue this to the back because you won't see it. We're going to glue that to the panel. I'm just going to do that. Kind of press it in, get it lined up. Always use the table to your advantage when you can. Because again, this tab I'll do to the back as well. So I'm just lining up that edge. Fold it over. Whoops, wasn't quite right. There we go. You push it in, the fold will line up to the edge. And then for this one, we just need to add glue to this. and this little tab. Oops, I did it on the wrong side. Sorry about that. On the inside, we want it to wrap around because it's the back. That's why damp cloth is always good to have on hand. So I just go ahead and line it up like that. And fold it over. So again, I kind of pushed it in to make sure that that inside fold just lined up with the edge of this. So there's the front. But we want to have a roof on it. So I actually created a roof that will go like this. So it's a little bulky, but it's going to work. We'll see it once we have it done. Makes it easier to put on, or you can use a flat one. So if you look in the extra, there's just a 2-panel one that's rectangular that you could use, and you could emboss or something like that if you didn't want to go to all this trouble. But I'm like, if you're going to go to all this trouble and do this design, I got to go for it. So when we put it on, I'm just going to add glue. We want to make sure that see, this is the back with the tab, that this side lines up. So when we go down the middle, that we line this edge up like that. So it's flat, so it doesn't jut out. It's only going to jut out on the front and sides. And so I used a little bit too much glue. So don't put glue all the way to the edge. It's not going to be noticeable. So I forgot. Last time I suggested to put it on the actual thing. My mistake. It happens. So go from the biggest to the smallest. So let's go ahead and just add these. I did it again, but that's okay because it's already. So once you get the first one on, you can go all the way to the edge. I forgot. And if you don't put glue on those, you can kind of pull them up a little bit, or you can go as far as you want. What I mean by that is, so line that up with the previous. So once you get the first one, we want to line the remaining ones up. But what I mean by that is that you could, tweak it or do stuff like that. And you can even do that with the ones that are on the house. And I probably will do that a little bit after everything's said and done. I just like to do all these details last. But we're not done with our roof because we still have moss to place. But that everything has its, with this house, there's sections that require maybe a break. So this gets a little thick, but I just like the look of it, and it's easy to put on rather than put individual shingles on. But I like the look of the other two because I have another version that that you saw at the beginning. That was my very first version of it, which had the flat roof that I just embossed with an embossing folder. So it gets a little thick up there, but it's kind of fun. So now once we get all this together, make sure it's good. And I kind of don't want to mess with the shingles until I get it on the actual house. I'm going to put it flat. Let me go straight here. There's a little cutout up here. You can't see it, but against my better judgment, I'm going to put pen because I'm going to cover it. There's a little cutout up here to tell you where to put the peak. So I'm just going to, that just helps us place it and center it. So I'm kind of getting it in front of me do it here. So this is going to kind of align with that, but we want to make it as straight as possible. So that's the reason why that exists. So I'm going to go sideways so I can see it. I'm going to add glue to the back of this. So I'm still watching that this curve aligns down there. It just almost touches the, so let me see if it's straight. So looking at it from, I have to probably tweak it just a little bit. It pretty much almost hits the beam once you get it in place. So how's that look? That looks okay. Just double checking, triple checking. So I'm just reaching in. So you can see why I didn't put the back or the bottom on yet. So we can do a lot of reaching to be able to push from inside with our fingertips. So then after this, we can go ahead and take this door trim. Make sure we have and line it up along the edge here. So I'd suggest putting the glue here and don't do the full extent. Just carefully go close to the width. You don't want to go to the edge because it might not be that big. I tried to make it a little bit smaller on the inside and a little bit bigger on the outside, but it's always. So I can't see it from, I'm going to stand up. I'm standing up to do this so I can see it. I'm just getting it around here. So if that little brown kind of shows on the outside, it's okay. It kind of gives it an accent. Kind of intended that, and if it doesn't, then it looks good too. So you can see the brown trim inside, and then it's getting there. We're really close. So the next step will be the steps and the alternate cobblestones if you don't want the steps. Okay, one thing I want to note is that I'm doing this video on 2 separate days, and when I use tape, I'm just letting you know this, make sure you use the red line tape or something like that, or add glue on the tape. Anyways, it can lift. This one lifted a little bit, but I put it down and it was able to come down. But I am going to glue the moss here, so I think it'll be okay. But we're not going to do that right now, so that's after a day of sitting. So what we're going to do next is put together let me go ahead and just move this aside. We're going to go ahead and put together the step. So here are the pieces for the step. So those are the little planks for the top. And these 3 little panels put together. I'm going to show you how to put that together. And also afterwards, if you select to use this cobblestone instead, you can go ahead and you just have to layer it like this. So you'd add glue to the back of this, making sure you're getting that close to the holes. Layer this, layer that, and then it would glue together. So let me show you one that's like that. So you can see the difference in looks. I'm just playing around with the little miniature to see if I want to use those. I just painted those today. So you can get different looks with the cobblestone, and when you do put it together, I'll explain when you put it on. So It's pretty simple. Like I said, it's this, and then you want to put glue here first, just around the holes, not really close, and then line it up, piece it together like that, and you glue that on, and then you add glue on this, and then glue it down. So that's in the extra stuff folder. But I think they both have a different look, so it's just a matter of the look that you want for the house. So I mean, this is a house you could make for really, even though I kind of make it fall theme, it could be for Christmas, it could be for Halloween. You can make a spooky Halloween one. So anyways, there's ideas. So I'm not going to put the cobblestone together, so I'm going to put this together. And then once we're done with this, we'll move on to putting the back of the house on and the bottom. We're going to do the moss fairly a little bit later, so a lot of movement, since it's loose, it can get messy. So we want to do that a little bit later. So let's go ahead. So we want to take this piece, and this is going to be curved in the front. So just curve it with your finger just a little bit, curl it. So it's going to just train it to be that shape. Then we're going to take this back piece, add glue to this tab. You could start on the other side too, it doesn't matter. When you go ahead and glue this, you want to glue that edge right up to the tab fold. Don't go over it. We want to make sure that the rounded panel fits inside. So one of them we're going to fit inside. There's 3 of them, 2 for either side and 1 inside. So this is not, since it's got a rounded portion, go like this. You have to kind of hold this last tab when you're gluing it. Just make sure you glue it on the inside. Again, just line the edge up to the tab fold. So you want to make sure that's good and glued before you do the next step. So I'm going to fold in the tabs on one side. So if you're using perforated lines, it should fold fairly easy. I'm using a solid line, but I cut it. Don't say that a lot. So I'm just folding it in. Just one side. I'm just pushing it down to train it down. Then we're going to take one of these panels, add glue to this long edge right here. And the reason I like doing this, I like putting one panel on the inside, because when it has shape like this, it kind of holds it in place, so it's easier for us to put the other panels on, especially the back. So when we do this will be the front. Go ahead and you want to be careful. You don't want to be tearing so getting that in, kind of pushing it around gently, getting that long edge into the tab and the inside tab fold there, like that. So the reason I like to do this, because when it comes to circular or any shaped items that are, what it does is it's easy to get the shape. So you can see I'm just going to push that down to get the shape. So when I do the other side, which presumably will be the bottom, I'm not going to have anything to push from behind. So it's going to help to shape it so when I put that back end on, it's easier. Okay? So once we get that first one in place, we can just flip these up. And it's just like earlier where I talked about the circle. If you want to just put glue here for the tabs, you can. I tend to do the tabs individually, but that's just because, so we're going to put glue on the tabs. I just don't like a whole lot. I think it's just, I get better coverage that way. Especially when you have fine tip applicator, you can kind of go fast. I mean, I'll have this done in a second. But you have to be fast, but you could always just put some glue here and then fold them under. That's all we're doing. And I'm keeping this kind of woodsy because I want it to seem like it's a wood step or mini porch, whatever you want to call it. So now I'm going to flip them in. I'm going to flip those big ones first, because I'm going to put it like that. So glue's still going to get on your table. So I'm going to start on one side, then go around, and as I go around, I'm pushing this side in, the rounded part. If you go in order, the straight parts are not the problem. I mean the straight edges. It's this rounded part. And if I give plenty of time, I'm going to flip it over. And I can see which ones might need a little more glue. Let me double check. Looks like it's pretty good. So now we want to cover that because we don't want... So I could have put the little wood slats on before I put this panel on. Probably should have, but I'll just do it all at once. There's really no rule on that. It just that it might be easier. So if you want to put the wood slats on first before you put this top panel on, that's up to you. But I like to get them both on first. So I'm just lining that up to cover those tabs. Just in case, ironically, sometimes what I think is the top, which is this one, doesn't look as good as the bottom. So I always use the side that I like the best. Depends how on I am that day. So I'm just going to get that, now that I got it lined up, just get in those edges. And be careful of these little corners, because you can pull them apart pretty easily. You're just going to get a bone folder, and you could use a bone folder to get in there if you wanted to. Apply pressure on the edges. Middle's easier with the finger. So let's put the back on. So with the back, we're just going to anchor with the texture side up. I'm just going to anchor to that long tab. Get pretty good coverage there. I kind of wiggle it into place first. And then we're going to do a big version of this when we do the base. But this is where it can get a little tricky with all these little tabs. So yes, these tabs kind of overlap this side tab, but it's not a big deal. So this is why I kind of make this the bottom normally. Because we're going to add glue to all these tabs. Seeing if you can see all that. This is where I truly would say put glue on the tabs. I'm going to put that tab under because it might interfere. These end tabs. So you don't want to push them down too far because they need to grab still. So I'm going to get plenty of glue, and I'm trying not to get too much towards the front because we don't want it to show. But the magic of inking can hide some glue leakage, and I have my little damp paper towel on the side just in case we have leakage. So I'm just double checking, making sure I have good glue coverage on these big ones. Should have done the little tabs first. Then we're going to just carefully close it. So I'm going to start on this side. So I'm going to start right there. So what I'm doing is making sure it lines up. I'm going to kind of squish it a little bit because as I go, see, I'm kind of pushing it in as I go around with my thumb. It's not my most favorite, but this warranted I wanted a round step. I don't know why I was so adamant about that for this one. So I could have done a square, would have been way easier, but I just wanted a round one. I like the round look, and even though sometimes crafting is a little hard with it, it's doable. So I'm just rubbing these, and then you can flip it over and do this. Then we're going to go ahead. I didn't put the cheater lines on like I did with the door, because the door would be more noticeable. I would recommend I inked the edges a little bit, but start with the front. And you can actually put glue. I'm just going to put glue here, just a little ways in, and start applying. I didn't go too. So to me, I can see better from the side. So that's why I have it sideways like this. Just get this lined up. We're just lining it up to this curved edge. And then now we can do the rest of them are the same size. But made sure of that. So we're just going to line them up and just push them right next to it, making sure that it's lined up on the right and left. And make sure you don't have glue on your fingertips, because it'll show. So I'm just lining them up like we would do pieces of wood. Which is like that. I personally like the wood plank look. Hopefully I will have wood floors in my future house. That won't be, I'm not living where I'm going to be forever, so think about those things. And then flip it over. And that's it. So I could add, I have a little ink on this. Ink the edges a little bit. And I'm just wiping it off, getting the excess off on the side. It didn't line up perfectly on the back, but that's okay. And you could even, I just didn't want to do the embossing on these. Just give it see if you can see the planks pretty well. But there it is. So now we'll put that away. And we'll go ahead and do the back piece. Many times, not all the time, but many times I make mistakes. I did a whole instructions on how to put this together in a certain way. And apparently I had a little issue. I shouldn't have put this on until we put the back on. So if you do that, I'm going to put a little note. If you're watching this, I put a note earlier not to do that. But obviously we already did that. So, and the reason is, it's just this part that I was worried about. Oh, I know why we did that. Okay, so it's going to seem odd that I actually put this on before I put the back on. And the reason I did is so we could really get full reach in there without ripping anything on the back. So you have to be kind of careful when you're in here. So when you go like that, you want to lean it like that. But we really don't need to lean it too much. I'm just going to show you. I'm doing that temporarily so I can show you. So we're going to put this back piece in just like we did the front piece. Like that. Not that one. This one. The one without the tab. So that's the one you want. Right there. Okay? So the other one's going to go over it. So you want the one with the tab. So take the one with the tab. Pre-fold it so you're ready. We're going to do it just like we did the front panel originally. And that gets wobbly, so just hold on to it. So you can see we're just going to attach the first one to there, and then on the inside we're going to glue it on. So you won't be able to see everything. So what I can show you is the first tab. So you can see the glue there. We're going to put the texture side outside. We're going to glue this edge, like that, to that. So I have to do it down so I can see it well. So it will fit. I'll show you as soon as I get it in there. So just like you did the front, you want to line it up, the edge, that first edge, within the tab fold on the inside. So that's like that. So on the back it looks like that. I don't have much space, so I tried to zoom out as best I could. So now we're going to add, so you may need to just temporarily put it gently. I'm going to add glue to all the insides of these tabs, and then we're going to go from this tab to that tab, that tab, that tab, and get these edges all lined up and glued on the inside like that. So let me do that. So I prematurely I didn't see, I put the glue on the wrong tab. So only on the tabs on the back. And then it'll flatten like this. And you can see it lines up at the bottom. You put it down like there. And then we're going to go ahead and take this piece, and we want to fold it in. We're going to fold it out just a little bit, because we're going to use that as our little tab opening, our opening to put lights in the back. But we want to cover those tabs that we have. But we want to take this piece. Once you have this with a valley fold, which is folded towards us up, so it'll flap out. Add glue on that tab. And then line up. I can see it better from the side, so I just line up this edge to the tab fold. Not over, but you want to get pretty close to it. And the way it's going to open is like this. Open and close. Now, don't do that yet. It's not really that secure right now, so like that. So once I get it glued on, so we're going to glue it on. So we're going to add glue all the way around the edge here. You could do it on the actual box too. Let me take this out. Don't do glue on that little half circle. So this was kind of an original enclosure. It works. I just assumed that what I would say, and I'll show you, I think I want to use a fairy. I hadn't decided whether I was going to use fairy lights, but I think it would be best for this one. And don't add glue to the tab, because it has to flip back and up. But you can always put the little control out there if you wanted to. So you only have to open it so many times if you wanted to do that. So I'm going to line it up. So we're just going to gently put it on its front. Do not push down because we don't want it, that little porch awning to. So I'm just lining it up. Then now once we have it in place, we can flip it over and apply pressure like this. So I'm just getting around all the areas that were glued, like right here, right there, right there. Saw a little dried glue there. So now we have that. I was a little bit off up there, but that's okay. I'll cover that. When I do the moss, it'll cover it. So I'm going to leave that flap open for now. So now we want to, this is probably the most, I would put it on its back because it's flat. And we're going to work on putting the bottom part in, which I think is one of the challenging areas too. So this is not, like I said, the beginner project in my opinion. But I think if you watch carefully and just doing, I think if you did some boxes prior to this and some other 3D, I mean, if you're not really experienced, those are experienced. I'm not worried about it. I just know that it can be challenging even for me, and I've done quite a few of them. So now I'm just going to line up this. I'm going to glue it on the non-textured side for this. Just line it up. So once I get it lined up, I'm going to flip it over and apply pressure on the inside. So you can't really flip it over. I forgot, it's not a really easy thing. It's one of the reasons why we're keeping this until last. But I can put pressure on the front and back, the tab. So I'm reaching in. So the considerations for this particular box was making sure that the order of the way you put it together made sense. So I'm going to show you inside right there. So the last thing is, so I'm going to explain it because I think that it could get frustrating for somebody. But we don't want to push those all the way in because we can actually try to reach in here and apply pressure a little bit. But you can't really get in really easily. So what we want to do is have this fold over and attach to these. My suggestion is try to add glue to all these at once, but I realize that this is a lot of area to add glue to at once. So you could get away with, and we're going to do this, I'm going to show you. Nothing's perfect. Remember this, the bottom of it's going to be on a base. I mean, unless you choose not to use a base. But I'm going to put glue on these, and make sure these are trimmed. If they're in your way, you're going to have some trouble. The shingles. Now you probably can tell why I didn't put moss on it yet, because we have a lot of flipping around. So I'm going to just do this long one. I mean, I'm going to try to do them all at once, but if you can't, you can do the long one and 3 of the side ones. And then try to get in with the, you have to have something like this to get in to glue the next. The other thing is when I'm holding it, I'm not going to put it upside down because I have a fireplace up there. So we can't do it that way. We have to do it on its back. So I'm double checking. So it's just going to go on like that. I wish I could get the angle. I'm going to do it on its front, but I would just, you can do it on its side. See if you can see it. I'm just going to go like this. I have to be on the side. So hopefully, let's see if I can do it partially. I could lean it on. I wouldn't do it this way, honestly, but I'm trying to show you on camera. So I'm lining things up. Pulling this out. And then just carefully moving it because I don't want to destroy anything that's poking out. I'm kind of squishing this, and it helps to line that edge up. So you could, I was just squeezing it to get the right shape. It's a little bit off, but not horribly off. And then I can go like this. So that's actually one of the things that, I know people don't really care, but when we're putting together things as a designer, at least for me, because I haven't been around a lot of designers designing, I want it to be perfect, but I realize that paper's not perfect, fold's not perfect. So this part I knew was going to be difficult because of the size. But you could actually reach in still and get some of the edges in here with a tool like this. And then you can ink around the edges if you wanted for the imperfections. That closes that. So now we're going to do the messy part. You could do this later. If you wanted to make the base, you can go ahead and pour it onto the base. But the reason I'm doing this first, so it's nice and dry by the time I have the base done, and it dries clear. So I'm going to use this moss. So I think I got this at Walmart locally, or I may have gotten this. I'll have to see if it's online. But there's lots of moss, but I got this particular one because I like the color of it. And I bought it actually a couple years ago because I wanted to finally do it a couple years ago. But I ended up doing it now, obviously. So we're going to use this. I'm probably going to make a big old mess. Move that out of my way. So what I'm going to use is I have a bunch of tacky glue, and it's just because it's nice and thick. And I'm going to have a brush. I have two brushes. I have a thick one for putting it on in larger areas, just one of the sponge brushes, and then a little one if I have to get close to the chimney, or I have a smaller area I want to do. I'm gonna get a little cup. I have a little cup to put the glue in. You could also use something like Mod Podge to do the same thing. Just be careful. You might want to test it on your paper before you do it. I know it works because I've already done this. I've used tacky glue. You could use if you had Barely Art. I just don't want to. I like to use this specifically for assembly, but there's other craft glue out there that works well for this. So that's the one I'm going to do. So all I'm going to do, oh, one other note is that I did originally get sheets of this, because you can get sheets, but the sheets would be, it would be a challenge to cut them. I'm only going to do the moss to show you we're going to go kind of from here back to here. And I might have it go over the edge a little bit, but I'm going to keep that back clear. So it's up to you how you want to do that. I'm going to open this up and pour it. It doesn't have to be the turbo tacky. I just happen to have a lot of excess glue because I tested a lot of glue. And I'm sure this is probably more than I need, but I'm just going to do that to start with. So a lot of this I'm not going to talk to you. I'm going to show you my technique. I've never done it before, so I just kind of did it the way that worked for me. So whatever method you have, you can always share with others on the video, or if you join our Facebook group, or look up, YouTube's or something like that. So it is messy. I'm going to pull some out so we don't have all this crinkly noise. You could try to put it on flat like that. thick, but I just put it, I kind of break it up when I go. So I'm just going to dip it in. I'll just start from, I want to do it on the top so you can see it. Making sure you can see it well. I'm going to try to put that whole thing on. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it like I did it earlier, which I kind of broke it apart. And so it gave me a little bit more. I got smaller pieces. And I did this. So I realize this is kind of messy. You're going to get messy. You're probably going to want to get glue off your fingers. Make sure you don't get them on your fingers. What I liked with this like fine stuff is that I could put it on and it kind of can get over the glue. You want to make sure you're using a glue that is clear. That's why the Mod Podge mat would work. So I probably didn't put it as thick as I wanted to. So you kind of have to play around with it. Yes, this does get messy. I do get stuff in it. I found the thicker the better. I kind of went a little bit not thick. And then putting it on. If you look in the extra folders, I'll have just solid pieces if for some reason you just want to put a solid piece back there. Just for the whole sections, just as an alternative. You can always cut it manually, whatever you want to do if people don't want to go to this extent. But, I mean, honestly, I did this because of the look. That's it. So I'm going to continue doing this. I'm going to be, you can watch it and fast forward. It's going to go really fast. And you can see. So in between, I'll just kind of fill in the gaps, that kind of thing, until I get it sufficient the way I want. So let me go ahead and continue. So I know that's super messy. The reason why I like to do it that way, because you can take it out in thick pieces. When it comes out, it's like really thick, like this. Let's see how thick it is? You could try to put it on that thick, but because of the shape of it and the size of it, it just doesn't proportionally look okay to me. And I'm going to show you the moss. I'll try to use it again, but here's the moss mat. I got this at Michael's that you could try to cut manually and put on there. I think it would work better with this square, but I just like the natural look. To me, when I think of a Hobbit house, and I know we call it a Halfling, but kind of this inspired by Tolkien. When I think about a house like this, I think, you know, it's natural. So I like the natural feel. So once it dries, though, you could go ahead and trim it. So it's going to make a super mess. And if you want to, just basically get this over the trash can and get some of the loose parts. But I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to get a little bit off every time you move it. So I'm just trimming it a little bit. And you might want to wait a long time. It's not exactly dry yet. But you could always patch it up and put more in there. You could go further up if you wanted to go further up. I know I'm doing it off camera, but I'm just trimming it up a little bit so it doesn't get in the way when we put this on the base. Just make sure you don't cut the actual house. So I have a pretty big scissors I'm using. And the other thing is I have a trash can. I just shake it over the trash can. So once I get it the way I like, and it doesn't have to be super thick. Remember, I can see the glue right there. But when you're looking at it from the front, the overall feel of it, depending on whether you do it for you or as a gift. This is why the moss is in packs, because it actually stays together well when you keep it in the pack, but when it goes like without it, I have a trash can I'm just throwing it into. So I'm just going to shake it real quick. And when you're doing all this, make sure you're not pulling on that front on anything. Just hold it from the sides and shaking it. So now you can see from the front what it looks like, and then side. So this is all to taste. And again, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you could always put either shingles all the way around, or you could, like this, which will take time, or I'm going to give you some panels that are for each of these sections in the extra stuff holder. So it'll just be it won't be up to here, it'll be up to the actual roof that we originally created. And an important thing is keep glue off your fingers too. I mean, I didn't tell you, I'm going to remind you that several times, because that obviously will get on the front, and we don't want to do that while you're maneuvering. So this is not the simplest part, but it's fun. I enjoyed it, and I don't mind it kind of falling off, because once I put it somewhere, I'm not going to really move it that much. So make sure it's good and dry before you glue it onto the base. So I'm going to show you the base next. So here's the base. I mean, you can select not to use the base, but the whole project is the base. So we're going to put this together. And we want to go ahead, and you can curve this a little bit with just with your fingertips just to get it trained. It's going to be similar. It's on a big scale of the step that we made. And we want to go ahead and make sure that these are pre-folded. And we'll fold those little ones in a minute, and we can pre-fold those. But we have to pull them. One's going to go in, and one's... Anyways, you can pre-fold them. Oopsie. Okay, so the way it goes, I didn't put numbers on this or anything. This is number 1. This is number 2. So it goes, because this is the other side of that. And the reason there's so many pieces is I wanted to make this whole file letter size compatible. So even though I used 12 by 12 myself, those that might have 8.5 by 11 letter size would be able to use it. And I think A4 too. And then the big piece, which will be the back, and then the last side. So putting those in order, just to the side there. Go ahead and add glue. We're just going to glue these together. So remember, you want the piece that has 2 that look like the same size plus a little. We're just going to line it up to the edge up to the fold. Don't go over so one of the panels will fit in. Then the big one and this one. If you're ever in doubt, you can go ahead and look at the PDF file that's included, and I'll have little notes next to it saying 1, 2, 3, 4. So, but I kind of tried to make it visually obvious. The big one's third, like the first big one, second big one in 3 sections, 1 section, and then 2 sections. Originally, I had it a little bit too long for an 8.5 by 11, but everything else was compatible, so I made that change. So after you have this together, I'm going to go ahead and glue this last tab. Since it's not polygonal, like even on all sides, polygonal, we just have to hold this up. I've just folded it so it'd be easier to see where the tab fold is. And make sure you let that dry. So this is going to be similar to the bottom of the house when we put 2 panels on one side and then a panel on the other side. So as with the house, we're just going to fold in one side of the tabs. I know the top's kind of folded in too, but we'll have to unfold it to fit in the big tab. So we're going to take this piece and glue it right here. So this is where it might be helpful when you're doing the base not to have a fine tip applicator. I hadn't changed it yet. So there's on the Barely Art, you have these different tops. I don't know if I'm trying to find it because I misplaced mine. Let's see. They come with different tips. So in a pin, you can see this one's like to keep it kind of when it's closed. But you can cut this one. I believe this one, that's the pin that came with it, but that's the reason why I don't use that pin anymore. I just pricked my finger. So I'm going to cut this tip off a little bit more. And we'll use the smaller one. Let's see if we can get it to work. But stop for a minute so I can fix my little bleedy finger. Okay, my finger's not bleeding that bad. So this will give me more flow. I think that I'm gonna cut it even more. I'm not ever gonna really use this tip that much, so I want it to actually flow. There we go. Probably put too much on, but go ahead and just carefully line this up. You kind of have to get it in. So line that side up. So a better flow of the glue is going to help. So we're just going to do this in sections. So be careful how much glue you use with yours. I mean, you have to kind of know how your glue reacts. So I'm going to start from where I glued it. Go around. I'm pushing in as I press against each tab. Because some glue does make the paper weighty. And you have to kind of know how much you can use. So now the little tabs. So this applicator may not be the best, but we'll see. I'm going to get the other one. So whatever glue you had, a bigger tip just helps. I don't know what everybody uses, but I was going to go and grab my... I have a couple glues. I have art glitter glue too that I'll use occasionally. Well, it used to be my go-to, but I like Barely Art better now. And then we're gonna go, I'm just gonna use this one for that one. Flip them up, down there, and then flip it upside down. Continue where I ended, which was over here. Keep on going around, pushing it in from the side, pushing those tabs under, all the way across to get that shape. Then we'll finish it off with these last two. I didn't cut this off very well, did I? So maybe not as much. A little bit too much glue coming out. I have more tips, so I'll just have to fix them. So I abandoned the thought of using that tip for now, but you can use a thicker tip. So I put some glue on the back, cover those tabs, then I'll just kind of flip this up. Once I get in place, I can reach in. So what I found as I'm going around here, just applying pressure around the edges, what I found was I was worried that the base would be a little bit, usually sometimes I put supports in, but I was going to put a foam, like a foam, what is this, foam board. But what I found is what you could do is just get a couple squares, cut them out, and if you wanted extra space, you could always make it a little bit longer and put 2 levels. So this is 3.8 inches tall, and this is, 0.38 inches tall, and this is 0.4 inches tall. So it would help if you wanted to do that. I think a lot of us have foam board. In the US you can get it at the dollar stores and stuff, so, or Walmart, that kind of thing. So you could always place it in. So we'll just place, so I'm going to just show you like that. So it'll give it some sturdiness in the middle. But if you wanted to span the whole house, of course, you'd have to probably do like a rectangular across. So you could just measure it with a ruler. So now we're just going to go ahead and anchor this long tab so we can get the back on. So do yourself a favor and get as close as possible. Get it as accurate as possible. So I'm going to put the textured side out. So just line it up like that. Just making sure it's wiggling it into place. Flip it backwards and just reach in and apply pressure that way. So the most difficult part of this, just making sure that front is on good. The most difficult bit about doing this back part is that we have to just kind of flatten it down, just like we did with the steps earlier. Kind of go like this. So as we put glue on it, we'll go around like this. Squish it in, go around like this, and then kind of adjust as you go around. So you can push that in, and so there's ways to adjust this. So this will be the hardest part to adjust. Just kind of have to vaguely. So what I'll do is I'll do it up to about, I'll put glue on up to this one. And I'm going to have to pull it up a little bit, but I'm only going to do that. I normally put glue on everything, but I think I find it difficult, so I think a lot of people would find it difficult. So I'm going to show you how I did it. But let me double check the top, make sure that looks good. Have a little glue here. Okay, I'm satisfied with how the top fits. So we're going to go ahead, I'll start with, really doesn't matter which side, so we'll do this side. This is why I wanted one with a little bit more flow, because you don't want the glue drying on you as you're going around. Flipping those down. And be careful with like there's too much glue on that one. I'm going to adjust it. We don't want to get it on the front. If it's on the part of the side, that's that front right in front of that curve. It's going to be shown. You're going to be able to see it. So we're going to just wipe it off my finger. So now I'm just going to go down, carefully line it up. I'm lining it up here. Just right here, I'm just going to push it in a little bit so I get over to the tabs. What I'm going to do is push it down and just kind of push from the sides to get it adjusted. If you need to, you could get something small. Oh, I didn't have anything. You don't want to wait as long as I'm waiting. But to line it up. Something to reach in there, but it's actually okay down there. And I'm just going to reach in to do the rest of it. So I'm going to have to, a couple tabs are going to pull. So I'm just doing it carefully. I tried doing the glue all at once, but honestly, a lot of people are just going to get frustrated with that, and I'm trying to figure out how to eliminate frustration. So now, We can start again where we ended, pushing it in. And before I really push down, I'm pushing that in, lining it up as I go around. So it looks pretty clean. I mean, you can do it. It just requires some patience. And then you would probably want to go like this to get that down. So now we can just add once we get that all secure, if you wanted to, you could ink the edges. It's up to you. I think it looks pretty good without it. We're going to go ahead and put together these little flower panels in the front and put on the grass panels. So I have these little flowers. So there's 10 of them, and they alternate in color. So I included the middles, which you can see. So I'm just going to go put the 5 colors there. So you can use the middles, or you could use something like a enamel dot or liquid medium, like Nuvo drops, something like that for the middle. But it's really, that's up to you what you want to do. I used some rhinestones on the last one and just colored them brown because I wanted the brown middles, because I kind of want this to have a feel like kind of earthy tones. I want earthy tones, or you can say it's kind of like autumny. But before we put these together, I'm going to put those to the side. We can go ahead and we have a pick-me-up stick too ready. Put these on. So the way these go on are like this. Oops, did the wrong side. Those go in the middle like that. So what's this doing is that grass is kind of going out here. Right there. So I used a Dots embossing folder, and there's lots of Dots embossing folders out there. So if you have a manual die cutting machine with embossing folders, I love them. So this is just going to go in the corner and line up with this edge. And the special note is, if you use the cobblestones instead of the step, you'd want to put the cobblestones on after the grass, just giving you this, taking this top panel so you can see, and it'll be lined up, just goes right over it, so it looks kind of like dirt, but you want to center it so this is aligned with this. So you want to put that down first if you use the cobblestones, okay? Because it goes under the house. So the house will go on top of it. I'll show you. It would go like this. Like that. Okay? But if you don't use the cobblestones, you would, well, use the steps. So you don't have to, if you use the steps, we can just put the house on. But we're going to put these on first. So let's put these together really quick. So we have these two. This is that folds like that to go around that corner. So it'll just go curl a little bit. Same thing on the other side. Goes around there. So I just thought it would be fun. You don't need to use these, obviously. So we go ahead and when we do this, I'm just going to do 2 flowers at once. I'm just going to alternate colors. So this is the pick-me-up stick, and it has a little sticky end from Silhouette. There's lots of things like this. I just took the extra sticky because it can get too sticky at times. I'm going to start with a sunflower. So the 2 colors I'm using are sunflower. So we're going to line it up with to the shape on the back. So if you need to pick it up, you can. to get it lined up. Then I'll do the other one, which is butterscotch, same color as the trim. But of course, if you change color schemes, you can make the flowers any color you like. You just need 10 of them. 5 of each color or just one color altogether. And try to line them up best you can. I'm kind of, for me, when I'm on a video, it's harder for me to talk and do it at the same time. But that's just me. So we'll just do these, so you can overlap them however you want. Just do the shape of the flower. You can put them by hand. I'm just having difficulty lining them up. And then on the other side, I'm just going to do the opposite scheme. So for this one, I'll do the 2 yellow sunflower colors in the back, and a butterscotch on top. And then you can put the middles and all that stuff. So I'm just showing you how I'm lining it up. Not doing the best job of it. I'm going to add glue to the back of this because I can't really see where it goes. And overlap both of those. So just line it up with one petal so you get the rest of them lined up. And then I didn't use the pick me up for that, but it does come in handy when it comes to these middle pieces. I'm just going to do a little dot of glue. Again, you could use anything for the middles. Just going to just barely touch it. Get it down, and I just hit the glue on the other one. So if you don't want to use these, that's okay. I just like to include a middle. I'm going to add a little bling in the middle of these. And then I'll go ahead and do the other one. And then we'll get to finishing this up. So now that I have these done, I'll put a little bit of glitter in the middle, little clear glitter, like this Nuvo, once I have it on, once everything's all set in place. I don't want to do it while I'm moving it around, so I'm going to use that, which is Nuvo Glitter Drops. I think this is silver, so we'll do the clear one, so I have to find that. Can't remember which one it is. So it's White Blizzard. Let me show you. White Blizzard. That's the one I'm going to use. I have them upside down, so that's why they look like that. So just go ahead and glue them on the front like this. Just want to add glue down here. Bring it up. Oops. Get around the edge there. So even if you have the cobblestones there, those will it will go up to it. It won't go past it. So for the other side, so we're really close to putting the house on. And you will have moss everywhere. If you did the way that I did the moss, you'll have it everywhere for a while. I have to sweep in here. It's on the floor too. It's horrible when you're so right-handed. I'm just making sure it's lined up with the bottom. You can push it up a little bit if you want it to be lined more so with that raised grass panel. So that's like that. So let's finish it off. Let me get that house. So again, before you glue it on, if you want the cobblestones, you have to put the cobblestones here first. Otherwise, once we glue it on, we can go ahead and add the little stair like that. So you're going to get a little moss everywhere one more time. So here, what I would do is just flip this over. Oops. And add glue to the bottom. And if you want to get glue that has a bigger opening, I shouldn't say better out opening. And you'll notice I'm not getting really close to the edge because it'll give me a little wiggle room when I place it. Trying not to get moss on this. So we're going to line it up on the back like this. So when we line it up, I'm going to show you. I'm lining the back edge and centering it. So there's a little room on each side, but not much. It's barely. And the reason why it's the size it is just to eliminate how hard it was to put together. I want to make sure it's straight. Just pushing it back just a little bit more. You can see how it goes like that. See, it's lined up. So once you get it in place, you'll just want to hold it. And probably you can try to hold it on the moss, but just know that you're going to, if you have moss, it's going to come off. So you want to hold it down for a while. So if you didn't get a chance, I always ask if you could give me a little like on the video. I know I said it earlier, but it truly does help me, and I appreciate anything you can do for me, especially if you like this project. So just make sure you hold it as long as possible, you know, so you can get it attached. I mean, you still can lift it by the base. My moss is still a little bit wet on the back there, and I may have to touch it up a little bit, which you can always do. So you can see you always lose a little bit and get some longer, have a little bald spot back there, but that's okay. So just know when until you finish, you're gonna get moss places that you didn't want. So there it is. I'm just gonna flip it back. So remember we have I put a little enamel dot in the middle. Well, it's actually a dot from Doodlebug. Let's see if I thought I had it sitting here, but I don't. But it's a little dot to give it the handle. It's an adhesive, but I put a little glue to the back. And then let's go ahead and add this. So I'm just going to glue this down. So we've got the step that's all ready to display. So I'm placing it, I know you can't see it, but I'm placing it in the center. So there's just a slight edge on either side in between the grass, centered in the grass, and then against the house. So like that. And I'll pick it up in a minute. So, and the other thing is, remember, is on the back, you have this little opening. So you can put fairy lights or battery operated lights. I'm just going to curve that a little bit. The way it shuts is like this. Oops. I'm not sure if I'll use that closure again, but it was an interesting experiment. I try different things every single time. But it does work. Or you could put fairy lights in and just run the cord out here and tape it here so you can turn it on and off by outside. But I have also a remote control battery operated light that I can suggest to you. So once you're finished to add the tea light or the little candle or fairy lights, which you could add inside, or like I said, nice little fairy lights would work. I just don't have one right now. But if you just kind of gently open the back, since this version I made it just a little bit different, so it's easier to open and close. But I put one of these in there, which is a remote control. So if I could just turn it on, off, so I never really have to open it and close it unless I need to put a new battery in it. So I'm just going to flip that underneath, and those on the outside. It's better to be done. It's harder to show you when it's on its front, but it's closed up right there. So now I'm going to turn it on, but I have to put it on its back. So, but you can't see it really. We'll show you a photo of the lit right here. So I cleared up the moss a little bit, the extra moss. So there it is. There's the final version of our Halfling Hideaway house. And I hope you enjoy this project. And I thank you so much for watching.